couple of Dans. Which Dan do we have today? All right, Sage. Let's get this thing moving so we can get on to other work.
All right. Let's see. There's a pull request from Kifu that does the lockless auth stuff. This is for to support the C-star work. Looks like Casey's reviewing it. I haven't looked at it. Um, there's another one. Yeah, go ahead.
Is any of that kind of work? Can we use any of that in the non-CSAR world? Do you know? Has there been any effort to make any of that generally useful, or is it really just
I don't really know. I haven't looked at it.
okay?
in principle, I guess it might be, but I'm not sure that locking has been a problem in the auth code. It's more the crypto operations. So, um, yeah, I'm it, I'm not terribly concerned about it. I think what we should do is, as we do the Messenger 2 implementation, we should be really careful there about what calls we do and when and where, and
Okay.
the sense of the performance in that case. That because I have a feeling that the current thinking is that the message signatures are kind of going to go away with Messenger 2. So you'll either just be fast and this won't be an issue, or you'll have also be doing encryption, in which case it'll be slower, but it's full-blown crypto, and there'll be all sorts of other, and we'll have to be really careful there about how fast we can make the crypto go. But
In the C star world, we're going to have a lot of trouble profiling things. A lot of the existing tools are not going to. I mean, they'll work, but at least
to
from
understand what it's doing.
yeah,
Yeah.
at least from all the C star style code I've profiled so far, it's that's coming. It's going to be really hard.
It's not a traditional flame graph, right?
Exactly.
Yep, it'll be interesting.
Another thing I'm a bit concerned about when it comes to crypto and C star is the how OpenSSL's locking model would fit with C star. OpenSSL, especially in the EVP at the EVP layer, requires some locking. That's true that in only as far as I read the code, only in the FIPS enabled mode. But
yeah. Yep. Well, we're gonna have to be careful.
basically, this means reading not only sources of the OpenSSL project, but reading sources after applying the patches vendors provide. Plain story.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Let's see. All right. There's one there, optimized recovery order. I haven't looked at this closely yet, but it looks pretty simple. I think it's just deciding which replicas to do first. Let's see. Posting memory tuning for Blue Store has merged. Hooray. I'll get backported soon. And let's see, there's an RBD one that's being reviewed. Jung's one to limit the size of exports. Patrick is going to review that. That seems to be important when the metadata servers have lots and lots of memory. And this OSD shard due on commits one. Dunping is stuck a little bit because the topology tests show failures left and right, and he isn't able to reproduce or understand why that's happening. We can run it through again, I guess. The last time I did it was just like 50% failed or something, so not quite sure what the deal is there. But I think, so the one with the issue with that one is that I think we need to do, separate from the stability, making sure it actually works right, I think we need to reconsider the performance to see if it makes enough of a difference to be worth, we really should be applying it. It was a little bit, I think I can't remember. I guess we sorted out the sharding thing. He always sends them the completions to the same shard, and that probably isn't going to impact the performance too much. But yeah, not too sure. Anyway, I think that's it. Anything here that we should discuss?
Not really. Well, at least I just kind of put some update stuff in there, but maybe the only kind of interesting thing I'll mention with my stuff is that there is a cost to switching over from one kind of like favoring one kind of cache to another kind of cache. The allocator, I think it keeps like groups of objects in a particular like allocation group, for similarly sized things or whatever. And it looks like when you switch from like predominantly O node to predominantly maybe like block cache stuff in memory, there is some cost with doing that in terms of kind of wasted memory and overhead. It goes away over time, but you don't want to be like swapping back and forth between them really often. So it's
that sounds like it would be a natural artifact of just the fragmentation.
Yeah, exactly.
Waiting for the old allocations to go away before you can reclaim.
Yep. Yeah. So it's just one of those things that we have to be mindful of.
Yeah. Yep.
But I'm hopeful though that once this stuff is done, then it's time to start looking at what all of this stuff really looks like when you allocate it in memory, and whether or not what things are fixed, what things are variable, where we can store them, how we should store them, and not just cache, but other temporary allocations of memory in Ceph. Where all this gets stored and how it gets packed, and just in general, that kind of thing. I don't know that we've ever really done that. Maybe we have, but
yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Anything else we should talk about?
Maybe the topic about lowering the debug MS defaults.
Yeah.
I really have a mixed feeling for that.
Yeah, I feel conflicted. It's a nice performance bump, but there have been cases where it's mattered. So I don't know.
I have a branch. Please continue. Sorry.
I was just going to say that it doesn't matter for our QA because we have the logs cranked way up anyway. It's just when people are deploying things in production. So, anyway, go ahead.
I have a branch that adds some caching to the entity ADDRT. It would require merging the fix for clearing the instances of that class first. However, it's on my GitHub. It should provide some benefits. Definitely, we won't eradicate all the overhead because there are multiple sources of the overhead. That is most related to, at least in my profiling, most related to crafting the message itself, not even putting it in a queue. That is, by the way, synchronized with mutex.
Yeah, it's all the operator arrow, O-stream, whatever. Yeah.
Instead of lowering the debug level, would it work to just kind of go by and audit all of the MS log messages to see what's really useful and what's not, and kind of eliminate anything that's not?
There are two that matter. It's when you receive a message and when you send a message. Everything else that's like 99.99% of.
And messages. They are on the first level, if I recall correctly.
And Radek showed me one of those, and I was wondering, like, that statement, do we use all of the data in it, or can we shrink what's happening there to only? I don't know really. I don't know what's useful in it, but
I think
Okay.
I just don't know what is the real part of our interface, whether it's a real part of our interface with operator or not. Adam has just suggested moving those level up, but still, another question will arise: is having this particular message on first level part of our contract with operators or not?
I would I would be I would hesitate to change the level because for all of history, setting level 1 shows you those messages, and that's usually what you ask for. So if we want those not to show by default, I think setting the level to 0 is the way to make them go away. But again, they are the thing that has been useful for establishing context when people run into problems. So
Maybe that's an argument that we need the binary logging infrastructure, whatever that looks like.
yeah.
Maybe the Mark's idea to lower the number of details we are presenting on the first level is a way to go. With maybe some hint, please increase if you want to see more.
Yeah, the problem is that the arrow operators aren't context sensitive, aren't debug level sensitive. They're already relatively concise. Like the only ones that really matter that are going to dominate are OSTOP in and out, basically. OSTOP and OSTOP reply. I guess some subops. But I think they're already relatively concise. But I have a feeling that even trimming those down a little bit is going to have a marginal impact compared to rendering that whole line completely. So I'm not sure it's worth it.
From the performance point of view, it could provide a lot of speed up, because profiling shows that most of the overhead comes from processing those this huge number of details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. We could also just tell people that they'll get 20% if they set debug MS 0.
Oh, that's also right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see if we get more feedback on the thread.
The first place to start. However, it will be also nice to have some kind of action plan. What I guess I will focus on profiling in Ceph without the Cephx. I mean, in the CBT world, to see whether the numbers match what is expected.
That sounds good.
Then maybe trying to fight some of the overhead. I don't know, caching is a way to go. However, it just adds extra complexity. We'll definitely entity ID. I took a look, even quite detailed, on entity ID DRT, and it's mutating. It's supposed to mutate. So we would need to also take care of coherency between actual values and the cache.
Yeah.
A source of more complexity means even bigger, further complexity.
It sounds like a nightmare waiting to happen. When you adjust the structure and it renders the same way as before and you don't notice and whatever. That sounds dangerous.
Yep. I just have mixed feelings.
Yep. Yeah, I think focusing the performance testing on cases where auth is turned off though makes sense, because that's where we're going to be with Messenger 2. And hopefully we'll get the prototype or the initial draft of it's your vacation, everybody's out, but the Ricardo's working on an initial pass of Messenger 2 that just splits out the protocol enough and has just enough implemented so that it'll actually take the different path, and then we can go from there.
If I understood you correctly, switching, tuning our log related behaviors might be matched with the switch to Messenger 2. Is that correct?
I don't think so. I think the semantic value of those logs is the same regardless of what the underlying protocol is. It's still the same messages that are being passed across. It's just the wire on wire protocol is changing. So I wouldn't want to map the two together, tie the two together. As far as users are concerned, they won't really notice that the protocol has changed. It should be transparent.
Do we have plans for changing the parts of the messenger interfaces related that directly crosses with the operators?
Which parts of the interface?
I don't know. Maybe those changes that require some extra setting extra configurables, like in case of Ceph v2 signatures or similar.
There's going to be some changes there. There already are. Like for example, the new messenger tool will let you do dual stack IPv4 or IPv6. So the options that control which you bind to are slightly different.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think that the key factor will be to just not surprise people.
Yeah.
Nobody would. So if we have a point in time that just enforces operators to learn something new, maybe we could reuse that to convey the change.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah.
Sage, going back to debugging and disabling debugging, this was pretty much a common thing in the Lustre world when I managed Lustre storage. It was known that if you cared about performance, you just disabled debugging. I don't think it's terrible to tell users, if you really care about high performance, you have to disable debugging. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And also that's the way present in reference performance testing of NVMe SSD vendors. If I remember correctly, both Intel and Samsung are tuning the configurables as a first thing.
Yep.
I guess from my perspective, it's worthwhile to make it better. I mean, it's not a bad use of time, but we're never going to get it to be the same speed. So at some point, we have to just say, hey, disable it if you care.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other things we could work on.
I mostly think there are other high value things that we should focus on instead.
Yeah. And putting extra layers of caching just to speed up a debug and error-prone caching additionally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can just kill the idea of putting caches there.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Cool. I will throw the patch through window. I'm really happy with that.
Excellent, Radek. Yes,
really?
I would strongly suggest deal with the low-hanging fruit if there is any, and then just move on.
Cool. All right. Anything else? Okie doke. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye.